guys. I think we're cracking along. All right. Sorry, guys, just give me 2 seconds. Just got to check something. All right. Okay. Thanks for jumping on tonight, guys. All right. Yeah, thank you for coming to our monthly meetup, guys. I'll be talking a fair bit tonight, less on the whiteboard to what I normally do, but I've got a bit of a couple of different strategies that I use personally that I suggest to other people to use. So I thought I want to share them with everyone. And I'm hoping everyone can take something away from it. So I'm just waiting on a few more people to show up. Sorry, guys. So give me another 60 seconds, 30 seconds for that to happen. But let's sort of get started through I suppose, just the utility side. All right, I'm just going to share my PowerPoint, guys. So today I'm going to go through a bit of a PowerPoint presentation, like I normally do, but this is very specific on what we're talking about tonight. So bear with me, guys. I'm just going to, I'm in a different location tonight than what I normally am, but that's for us there. All right, so before we get started, obviously next month's workshop is planning to be Tuesday, the 12th of November. So we're back to Tuesdays. We had to do Wednesday tonight because I couldn't do it last night. It's going to be getting, I suppose it's going to be starting to talk about people who are struggling to get into investment. And it could be because you've got limited funds, lower income, whatever it might be. So I'm going to talk about all different strategies that you can do there to make it all come together for you and get started in the property investment space. All right, guys. So tonight, before we get started, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Apologies. The chat box. So for those who normally join, or if you are new to joining this, obviously, depending on what device you're on, so if you're on a computer, this is the sort of screen you're going to see with the Q&A and the chat box down the bottom. I normally suggest just have a look on your mobile phone or iPad or tablet, whatever you're on, to see where these buttons are, because I do love questions, guys. So I love questions. I love interactive. The more questions you ask, the more excited I get. So down the bottom, find your question and answer or the chat button. If you can only find one of them and you have a question, whack it in there. We'll see it and can come back to you. I will be answering all questions at the end, but there may be some questions that pop up in the meantime where I will answer them throughout the process because I feel it might be the right time to do that. So for those guys who are watching, just so I know how to work that, if you can just try and put a thumbs up in the chat box, just so I know that you guys know where it is, in case you have some questions to ask me on that basis. So just put some thumbs up. Thanks, Dan. That's awesome. I can see you're in there. Emma, thank you very much. But yeah, just chuck that in there just so I know where that is. Hey, Paul. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Simone and Steve. Killing it, guys. So I'm glad you know where it all is. Any questions, guys, reach out. So I love questions. I'm a fan of questions. So I do like to go through a little bit of the general stuff, guys, because I did notice tonight there's a few new people tonight. So I just want to make sure they understand how we do it. So I'll always go through why you're watching. Of course, you're obviously interested in property investment, right? Or interested in investing or savings or just getting ahead financially. So what I've listed here is, you might want to create wealth through real estate, get a passive income stream coming in. But more often than not, you're more than likely referred by a friend or family member, an accountant or mortgage broker, someone along those lines. They've suggested you to come and watch this tonight just to learn about what we do. We do find a lot of new people are referred to us. As you guys know, we don't advertise, so I do get a lot of referrals from that space. All right, so in tonight's workshop, it's a little bit different tonight, to be honest. So what I'm going to talk through tonight, obviously for those newcomers, that I'm going to have a quick 2 minutes on who I am. And then I'm going to go through the main areas I think you have to master to become successful. Sorry, I'll rephrase that, financially successful. And financially successful is different for every single person. So it's not a one size fits all scenario. So the first thing I'm going to go through is mindset. So a lot of things I believe is that people have a really bad relationship with money and they don't have the right mindset. And that is, to a certain degree, it's being financially illiterate. That's the biggest one there. I just feel as if they potentially would be ignorant as well to their finances. So I really am big about just understanding money. Definite big one there. A few tips on how to budget and savings. That's a big one for me too. A lot of people get that, I wouldn't say wrong, but could do a lot better. Increase your income, learn how to manage risk. That's a big one as well. Risk management is probably the one that scares people off doing anything in life. And of course, acquiring assets. But overall, it's a holistic approach to financial success in my eyes. All right, guys. So that's what I like to see from people. So if you want to chat to one of us at a later date about your personal scenario, Jess will chuck into the chat box what we call our 15-minute discovery call. If you did ever want to have a chat, you book in through that and you can have a chat with myself or Jess, and we can go through each steps you need to take to make it come together for you. But Jess will whack that in there later as well. And of course, you've always got this disclaimer. So everything I chat about tonight, obviously it's general in nature, and you should seek professional advice before getting started in any sort of investing. My whole goal is to just share ideas and strategies that work for other people to see if they can work for you. And it does create confidence. The more you learn, the more confident you become in putting together some sort of financial structure for yourself. But today I have another disclaimer. This is an unusual one. I don't have this one. I am not here to really offend people, but I might. So tonight I might offend some people, but I'm not here to make friends. Sorry, guys. I'm here to share my wealth of financial knowledge and give honest feedback on what I see on a weekly basis. What I mean by that is I see a lot of people doing things right. I see a lot of people doing things wrong. So I've sort of put it into our presentation tonight to try and show you guys the best way of putting it together. And this is just my opinion too, by the way, guys. Because at the end of the day, like I've said down the bottom here, I've made it my life's mission to share my financial knowledge and get as many people financially structured as I possibly can. So a lot of people are not interested. That's okay. I don't give a shit. People who are and do want to learn something, that's what I'm here for. Alrighty. So who is the property bloke? So who am I? My name's Wayne Jessup. I'm a property investor, buyer's agent, and founder of The Property Bloke. Obviously, I've bought and sold, held more than 50 properties for myself and have as many as 2,000 plus for clients over the last 24 years. So I've been into property investment personally. I've been in it for probably 28 years, but I've been in this industry sharing knowledge for about 24. Over $300 million of property. And of course, this is the big one, guys. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on financial education over my career. The reason why I've done that is because I'm always about constantly learning. I believe the more I learn, the more I can share with my clients. And that's from a personal perspective. So obviously I grow my own portfolio, which is important from your feedback, and also professional growth as well. So my personal portfolio, I generate a six-figure passive income after expenses. So a lot of people say, Wayne, you got lucky, and that's bullshit. I did not get lucky. I worked my ass off. Some people say, how do you do it, Wayne? And then I tell them how they do it, and they're going, oh, that seems too hard. So tonight I'm going to show you guys how, just basic structures on how to get started in relation to financial education. So this is probably a little bit less about property itself tonight. It's a little bit more about mindset and giving tips on how to really get yourself in the right financial shape. So you could call it a boot camp, I reckon, tonight. You could call it a financial boot camp where we can try and get everyone's finances on track. All right. And this will be recorded, obviously, guys. So if you do want this recording, it goes up on our YouTube channel within about a week. It takes to get processed. It depends how good my lovely wife is and how quick she gets it done. It goes up on our YouTube channel, but Jess will also be emailing it out through our general database. So if you've registered, you're going to get a copy of this anyway, or a link to it. So, all right, guys. So, sorry, a bit more about me, my accreditations. I've got a QPIA or a qualified property investment advisor with PIPA. I'm diploma of financial planning, diploma of real estate, mortgage planning. I'm a New South Wales buyer's agent auctioneer, and I've got all my real estate licenses I need for what states I work in there as well. And of course, if you need a sick day letter, I am a justice of the peace as well if you need anything certified. All right. So on a regular basis, I do talk about our data partners throughout our presentations. Data partners are people who feed me information on what I think I need in relation to population growth, infrastructure, all different things that help me isolate pockets for my clients. and predict whether or not a client should potentially sell a property if I think the market's flattened as well. So data partners are an imperative part of our process, and we pay a lot of money to keep access to our data partners. It's very, very important. But that's the boring stuff out of the way about me. So let's get started, guys. So the first one I want to talk about, now I'm going to get distracted here, guys. I'm going to go off script a lot, I promise you. I'm very bad at doing it. But when I'm very passionate about things, I can tend to go off script. So bear with me if I do get out of control. I'll do my best to stay on track. So mindset, right? So everyone's heard this, and it's in the Bible. So the love of money is the root of all evil. Now, I am a non-believer in that scenario. I don't believe that money is the root of all evil. I believe the respect of money is the root of all evil. So that is the ignorance of understanding what money can do for you, and not treating money with respect is what I regularly see, and that's where people get themselves into trouble. So I don't believe in that, but that's all about mindset, guys. So when it comes to financial education, I honestly believe many of life's problems arise from the lack of financial education. So say, for example, in your normal home, most people fight about one of two things. Could be not agreeing on how you raise your kids, or it's highly likely it's about money. So many arguments I hear are about money. So it's very important that your partner in life is on the same boat as you when it comes to financial education. You want to be on the same track. But I do believe that's where a lot of problems come from, is just not understanding money. But of course, it does stem from not being taught in schools correctly. Now, I haven't been to school, obviously, for a little while. And when I was at school, I didn't really pay attention. I didn't really go. So, because I didn't feel as if I was learning anything. Obviously, I don't understand what schools teach now, but they really don't talk life skills about money. And I think that's very disappointing, but that's okay. That's what we're here for after school. So, the other thing too is your parents might be old school. So that's a big one, where a lot of people I speak to, especially the younger generation, are like, oh, their parents say, don't get a loan for a house, don't get a loan for this. You need to be more saving. Now, I agree with that to a certain extent, but you need to take a level of risk to really grow that savings a lot quicker than what inflation is going to eat away at it too. So it's understanding some parents are at what we call low risk, or they may have had an incident in the past that put them into a very conservative financial mindset. That's also fine, but you need to learn, guys. The more you learn, the more you become comfortable, and the more higher risk you will take. I don't have the time to learn about finances. I just don't think that's an excuse, personally. You need to make the time. It's not that hard once you get going. It actually becomes quite enjoyable as well. I can't afford the courses. That's always a big one there too. So when it comes to doing sort of educational courses, I'm a big one. Like, obviously, like I mentioned before, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. But when I do that, I also see a lot of people that all they do is courses and don't take any action either. So if you do some sort of financial course, you want to make sure it's in line with your personality, and take advantage of it, guys. Start taking advantage of it straight away. And a big one is, where would I start to learn about financial education? That is probably the biggest one I see. So I'm going to share with you guys the first book I actually read on property. I'm sorry. Anyway, start with some basic books. That's what I suggest. Sorry, guys. Find the time to learn and gain knowledge. There's no excuses for that. There is literally no excuses. 24 hours a day, you sleep 8 hours, you have 16 hours left of the day to learn more about money. So this is the first book I ever read, right? This book is not in print anymore. This was my first book. I read this when I was 16 years old. It's called Building Wealth in Changing Times. It's quite funny. In this book, it talks about properties for 60 grand. So it's obviously a very old book. But what this does is, this book changed my life a little bit. I read this when I was 16. I had a kid at 17. So as you expect, I had to learn really fast. But Building Wealth in Changing Times, it was all about property. And it was back in the day. So this was what? How old am I now? 46. This was back 30 years ago. So this was what, 1980? No, sorry, that was silly. Not 1994, when property investment or knowledge wasn't really a big thing. And obviously, we never had YouTube, we never had internet, we never had all those luxuries we have today. You had to physically do a lot of hard yakka yourself. And this was, I think it was this was the first book I actually ever read properly. Me in English at school, I was the sort of guy that used to read the front, the back, and make up the middle and hand that in as an essay or whatever they called it back then. Probably why I didn't pass English, but I'm big on books now, I'll be honest with you, but books I'm passionate about. So Building Wealth in Changing Times was a book that changed my life. Unfortunately, you can't buy that anymore, guys. Jan Summers is a legend of a lady, a huge property investor. She's done really well in the industry as well, but that's just an example book there. One book you can buy though. So The Barefoot Investor. Every airport I go to when I'm traveling, looking at properties, this book is everywhere. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like the book, but that's because for me, it's very, very basic. I got bored halfway through it, but it was I found the book to be very basic, really, and easy to read for someone who has no idea about money. This book is awesome. It gets you the basics on how to set up your finances, to put your money in the right places, and to stop wasting money. So I do like the way this guy's done this. He's actually got one out there for kids as well, guys. So if your kids are potentially, early teenagers, want to learn more about money, which obviously the earlier you teach them, the better. Saving just isn't one thing. Saving isn't the only thing you have to teach your kids. You need to teach your kids how to save and multiply their money. So the Barefoot Investor does talk about a lot of different saving strategies, separating your money, all this sort of stuff. And I do like the way he's put that in place. And he's been very successful again, which is awesome. The next book, which is great, is called Baby Steps Millionaires. This guy's an American guy, Dave Ramsey. You may or may not have seen him over the years on TikTok and Facebook. He's actually quite a funny guy. When he does his interviews, he has people call into his show and discuss their financial scenario. He's quite blunt, which is awesome. But his book is another one where I do like. They've got 10 steps basically on how to become financially successful. It's not really about investing. It's actually about how you're treating money. So like I've said a few times tonight, I'm just talking to you about how you're going to treat money, not necessarily about how you're going to invest it. All right, guys. So that's the first part. It's about getting your mindset right. It's about going, okay, I've got this amount of money. What am I going to do with it? And how am I going to respect this money I've got? That's a big one for me. All right, guys. So the next one is about budgeting and savings. Everyone hates that word budget. But let's be real, you have to have some style of budget and a savings plan of some type as well. If you're not saving any money, you've got a problem. So we need to be really aware of that. And you need to make changes, guys. The word no actually comes into it a lot too when you want to learn about how to save more, but I'll get to that in a sec. So a lot of people I meet say to me, Wayne, I don't know where all my money goes. And I honestly just go, well, that's bullshit. You know where your money goes. You're just ignorant or don't want to know where it goes. That's probably more what it's about. So, or you know where it goes and don't want to accept it as well. That's a big one for me also. So what I'm going to do is just, these are a couple of strategies I use or have used in the past that work. Now, some of you guys are going to laugh at me. So say, for example, when I was 18, I had a kid. Right through to probably early 20s, I used to get my pay each week, take it out of the bank, and put it in envelopes in my drawer. So little envelopes, my mum taught me that, little envelopes, one might have been electricity, one might have been, I don't know, phone, whatever it is, little envelopes in the drawer, so that when the bills come in, I had the money put aside to pay them. So obviously you don't have to do that now. You can just set up separate bank accounts for that strategy. But what I did find though, there were times through my life where I'm like, where is all my money going? It was just literally, I was just getting a bit frustrated. The bank account wasn't growing or I wasn't investing as strategically as possible. So before you work out a style of budget, you need to where your money's going. So over a month period, this is an example of what you can do. Now, you guys might go, this is too hard. But I'm telling you now, 1 month goes really fast and it's not too hard if you do it the right way. So the first thing I suggest is you can go out there, you can buy an A4, A5 notebook, just one of those spiral books from Kmart, Servo, wherever. And what I'm suggesting to do, if you don't know where your money goes, every time you spend $1, I'm talking every single time you go to the local petrol station and buy a Mars bar, I want you to get a receipt. All right. You keep those receipts. And at the end of the day, preferably every day, every night, sit down with your partner and write down what you have spent. So physically, I want you to handwrite it out. The reason why I want you to handwrite it out, which, sorry, all those technical nerds, that is old school, but I want you to handwrite it out because I want you to read it as you're writing it, where you're spending your money. Then over a month period, you will actually be embarrassed to see where you waste your money. So I remember, as a personal scenario, I was in my late 20s. I was working massive days. I was doing stuff, and I did this exact thing because I was frustrated with the money side of things. And I figured out I was spending $200 a week on Coca-Cola, believe it or not. So that's why I'm saying you may get embarrassed on where you spend your money. I was definitely. At the end of the month, write down where you could change your money habits. So each time you put your money down, you might want to categorize it from takeaway to bills, whatever it might be. And it'll help you figure out where your money's going. A big one I would love to see people say more to is say no to your children. It's okay to say no to your kids. I feel as if people have this fear lately of they don't say no to their kids due to peer pressure from the kids they play with. So I feel as if you've got to stop caring about what everybody thinks and teach your kids the better ways of putting it together. And of course, I used to say to my kids, is this a want or is this a need? So obviously you can always say want, but it's about, is it a want or need? That's a big one for me. And I always suggest that when you're going to spend money, it could be a sofa, it could be a new TV, it could be a new laptop, new phone, which is ridiculous what I see nowadays. My phone is smashed to pieces and I'm still using it, still working, I don't care. Is it a want or is it a need? That's what it comes down to. You can manufacture in your mind it's a need, but you've got to be real with yourself whether it's a want or a need. All right, guys. What I find as well is I get people to say, Wayne, this month all our bills came in. And I'm like, what do you mean all your bills came in? They're like, oh, we got the power bill in. And I'm like, oh, shit, okay. And then I always offer this scenario to them to make it better. This is how I pay my bills. All my bills, utilities. So I'm talking about council rates, power, many different bills. Gas. Sorry, guys, I'm a bit brain freeze from that. I pay them monthly. So, but I don't do direct debit. So this is the tip. I actually pay in advance via BPay. Each month, I get paid monthly. Each month, I transfer obviously I have scheduled transfers that leave that pay all my bills in advance. All right, guys. And it's very important that when you do have this sort of setup, whether you are paying your bills monthly, and I pay them in advance. So very often I have bills that come in, they're actually in credit. I don't have to pay any money at all. Where every other neighbour's complaining about their power bill, I'm not, because I do pay it in advance, so I don't get a big hit when that bill comes in. But it's very important to try and align this strategy in as close as you can to your pay cycle. All right. So if you're paid fortnightly, try and do it fortnightly. If you're paid monthly, do it monthly. So I pay myself monthly basically. So I use all my BPays come out on the 1st of the month. So on the 30th or 31st of the month, I feel really rich until I open my account in the morning when all my money's gone, which is fine. Everything's paid, doesn't bother me. Pay your insurance monthly. I think a lot of people are now anyway, but a lot of people think that because it costs more to pay it monthly not to do it. But some insurance companies don't charge more on that one as well. And this is the big one here, mortgage or rent paid in line with your pay cycle. For me, that's a big one. You always got the old philosophy of pay it weekly because, you can, it saves terms on your loan, which is true, right? If you pay it weekly, you are going to save years on your loan. But if you're paid monthly, what's the point? You're just going to make yourself stressed because the last payment of the month is going to be hard for you to make. So pay it monthly as in line with your pay cycle, but maybe you pay a couple of $100 extra to get in line to get that home loan down quicker for yourself. And like I mentioned here too, guys, you can actually schedule transfers from your account. So Schedule B pay, scheduled bank transfers to whatever utility or bill or mortgage or rent, whatever you want to pay that way. And of course, you'll have the option for some people is, like for me personally, I get some things paid directly from my wages. So if you're paid on a weekly basis, you can actually have your employer pay your home loan weekly for you directly to your home loan. It's called a salary credit. So you don't have a direct debit, you'll have a salary credit. And they can do that. They could probably do that for your rent as well. I don't know how that works for rent, sorry. But with your mortgage, you can definitely put that in place. But of course, you are going to have some yearly bills. Your yearly bills like car rego, etc. They're the sort of things you can't pay monthly. We can't get around that, but I would suggest to have a bit of a separate account just for that style of thing. And don't touch the money, guys. One way of not touching the money is in a lot of banking apps now, you can hide the bank account. So you can't see it. So you can have the money going there each month as part of your scheduled transfers, hitting that account each month. Hide the account until you need to access it to pay your bills, whether it's car rego or whatever. But you can, if you say to me, Wayne, I can't control myself with that money. Sometimes it's best to have that account in someone else's name, I'll be honest, and learn how to control the money side of things. All right, guys. Paying your bills within your pay cycle is important, and I'm a big fan of paying everything in advance, guys, to be honest. These are some basic money tips for you guys that are struggling a little bit, is you need to build what we call an emergency fund. So there's a fully funded emergency fund, and that's going to protect you against any financial setback. That's what I sort of allow for is 3 months of expenses. The reason for that is some things could go wrong in life. It could be your car breakdown, for example, out of the ordinary, you weren't expecting it, whatever it might be. Having 3 months of expenses in your bank account, what that stops you from doing is going and getting a credit card. You don't want a credit card. So you want to keep some emergency fund in place. Live below your means is a big one. This is a big one. It's unfortunate, but also eye-opening to how many people potentially live week to week or paycheck to paycheck. Sorry. Wealth, to me, in a nutshell, is how long can you live without a job? So if you were to say you're wealthy, so some people think just because they're on a high income, they're wealthy. That's not true. If that person on a high income can't live more than a month, which is about 60 to 70% of Australians, they're not wealthy at all. They're living above their means. So someone who I believe is wealthy, who's someone that can lose their job today and be fine for months in advance. They've got money, they've got savings, everything's right. But live below your means. So try not to spend all your money and have some sort of savings plan. And I'll get to that later when it comes to investing as well. A debt freedom, that's a big one. Prioritize becoming bad debt free. So that includes obviously your home loans on that too. Like that's a bigger one, but you focus on the small stuff. Car loans, Afterpay. I hate Afterpay. I don't get Afterpay. It should not have been invented. Credit cards are not good for you. And believe it or not, I actually believe HECS debt or help debt's now bad debt too, because they're charging pretty heavy interest rates on that old help debt, HECS debt now. It used to be off. I've never had it, of course. I didn't get into university, but as far as I'm aware, that used to have no interest rate and it used to not be too bad, but now it's got a high interest rate. And I've heard of people paying a fair bit into help or HECS debt, and a year later, they still owe the same amount. So for me, that is like the old American, what they call student loan. It can really hurt you. So then, of course, you've got zero balance is not a $0. So when I look at my bank accounts, I have a figure in my head, or basically a basic figure that, say, for example, it's 20 grand, right? So 20 grand is my zero. If I go below 20 grand, for me, I'm in a negative. Even though I'm not on paper, you would look at my bank accounts and go, Wayne, you're fine. But I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm below my zero. My zero is 20 grand, as an example. So aim to have your 3-month emergency fund or more as what we call your zero balance. Because your zero balance basically is, you don't want it to be zero, because if it's zero, you will have no money. You don't want to be in that position. You want to make sure you're enjoying life, but also being smart with yourself. All right, guys. I just wanted to share this picture. Sorry, this picture is exactly what we see on a regular basis. Things I don't need, things I can't afford, where all the money's going. It is a bit of in some sort of ways, keeping up with the Joneses. Just forget about the Joneses, worry about yourself, and focus more on your dreams. And putting money towards that, guys. That picture there was very powerful for me. That's what I see too often out there. So the next one is, and I'm going to get criticized here. I'm going to be honest with you. This is where you're going to criticize me straight away. For those of you who do know me, I'm a massive workaholic. I can't sit still, whether I've got ADD or whatever, I don't know. But I enjoy what I do. That's the first thing I want to explain here before you start criticizing me. I love what I do personally and also professionally. So increase your income. To borrow money to invest, you need a strong income nowadays. Borrowing capacities with banks at the moment are very strict. So they want to see more income coming in to see whether or not you can afford to pay it back. So how do we get more income? Now, I'm in the luxury position where I've got hundreds of clients and a lot of them have the same jobs. But believe it or not, the income variance between the jobs from one employee to the next can be 20, 30, 40% difference. So what I suggest to people is when you're looking at investing or you really want to get smart with your money, don't forget about focusing on your career. If you hate your job, find another job if you can, as quick as you can. But focus on your career. And so to find another job, you may need to study. So you might need to study for career advancement with your current employer or just change careers. Obviously, if you're on a relatively high income, it's going to be harder for you to step back. But you can plan for that sort of stuff. But you need to really be happy where you work and focus on career advancement to get consistently increased income. All right. A lot of people I hear about doing overtime, they pay too much tax. But I'm a believer is do the overtime, pay the tax, tax is progress. Whether I pay capital gains tax, whether I pay personal income tax, it's all progress to me. You're moving forward. So do the overtime if it's there, pay the tax, tax is progress, guys. And one thing I do promote is creating the side hustle you always wanted. You never know, it might work. So say, for example, it's hard to pick a side hustle, but say, for example, you wanted to be a landscape gardener as a bit of a, oh, no, you know what? I've got another one for you. A young guy I met, he works in a sanitarium and he actually, on the side, he does concreting on the weekend. So he wants to be a full-time licensed concreter. And so he does concreting on the weekend. He actually earns more money on the weekend than what he does through the week. So he's slowly building his side hustle business, putting together bits of concrete or whatever he's doing, and he's killing it. So that's a prime example there of a side hustle that's starting to pay off for somebody. Obviously, concreting might not be for you, but it could be doing nails, eyebrows. I can't believe, actually, coming back to eyebrows and eyelashes, I can't believe how much they charge for that shit. That's unbelievable. But anyway, coming back to that, you just create a side hustle, guys. Believe it or not, this is going to sound so stupid. When I was a young bloke, I think I was 17, 18. I had a kid. I did Avon. I sold Avon. All right. Now, some of you may look at me differently moving forward, but I sold Avon because it was extra money on the side outside of my normal job. Very often I had 2 or 3 jobs. It wasn't until relatively recently I didn't, because I just didn't have the time. But I regularly had 2 or 3 jobs. And Avon, ding dong, Avon calling. I used to kill it in Avon. I was the only male rep in Avon. Sorry, I'm going on with Avon, but it was killing it. I was killing it. Get a second or even a third job. I was chatting to one of my gym colleagues today. She's got a second job. I won't tell you what it is because it was a bit funny the way she told me, but she got a second job because she said she's just sitting at home bored. She went and did a bit extra work for a couple of $100. I'm like, that's awesome. Get a second job. And a lot of people don't realize too, if for example, you're just a couple and you've got a 4-bedroom house, have you ever thought about renting out one of your rooms in your house? All right. So there is a privacy issue obviously there, but you just never know. Rent out the room, rent out the garage. You'd be surprised where you can earn an extra dollar. It just takes a little bit of focus to increase that income. Now, before we go past this slide, I want to just clarify something. increasing your income. Some of this stuff I've mentioned here, you're going to get paid cash, aren't you? Which is fine. That's off the record. Who cares? I don't care. But for the bank to accept that second job, you really need to be consistent and it needs to be on the books. All right. So overtime needs to be consistent. If you've got a second job, it's casual, it needs to be consistent. So if you want the bank to accept your income, it needs to have some sort of consistency and it needs to be on the books. But if you don't care, if you don't need that, you're just trying to save a bit of extra dough, rent out a room, sell your socks on OnlyFans or whatever you got to do. Do whatever you got to do to make a bit of extra money. Just keep it legal, guys. But increasing your income. So learn to manage risk is my next one. Risk is a thing I come across on a regular basis. Obviously, when we're chatting with clients, we're slowly putting together a risk profile for our clients. And believe it or not, I can't believe how many people don't invest because they think it's too risky. Most times it's because they just don't know what the investment is or they don't understand the investment. That is risky, definitely. It's like getting into a race car with no knowledge whatsoever. You're going to hit a wall and you're going to probably die. So let's be honest with that. If you don't understand what you're getting yourself into, you need to have a professional who's helping you understand what you're getting yourself into or guiding you in that process. So how I sort of suggest for you guys to learn to manage risk is the best way to manage risk is to understand what you're doing, because the more you understand it, the less risky it's going to feel. So say, for example, you've got to need to choose the asset class you're most comfortable with. So that could be property, that could be shares, it could be businesses, Bitcoin, it could even be llamas. I don't give a shit. It could be llamas. I don't care what you think you want to invest in and where you're comfortable. Run with what you're most comfortable first. And of course, you can learn all about the other later. So say, for example, I don't do shares. I have business. I have property. I don't do Bitcoin. And of course, I'm not investing in llamas at this time either. So I've got 2 out of those 5. You might choose 1 out of those 5. You might choose 2 out of those 5. Some of my clients are going awesome with shares outside of their property portfolio, and some are going awesome with Bitcoin. At the moment, I don't have any clients investing in llamas, but you never know. That could come up with it down the track. The next thing is to align yourself with like-minded people that have the same passion for that asset class. And as you can see there, you've got free education. Now, what I mean by that is everyone talks about, everyone hears it, right? The person you are is a resemblance of the closest 5 people you hang around. So imagine hanging around 5 people who are killing it in shares and understand shares. Do you think they're going to pass on information to you that's going to be very, very fruitful and knowledgeable all for free? Definitely. So if you're into shares, if you want to learn more about shares, find out in your workplace, find out in your group of friends who's doing shares, who's winning, who's losing, who's doing things that are going to work. And just obviously you don't want to use them for the wrong reasons, but get to know them, understand why they're doing it, and just try and get them to share some information on how you can get started as well. You'll be surprised how many people will share what they do with you and help you get started in the process of that. And it's all for free, guys. That costs nothing to do that. Just make sure they're not trying to sell to you. That's the one you got to be careful of. Make sure they're not trying to sell to you, which if they're a good friend, then they're not going to do that anyway. Increase your knowledge. Knowledge will not come from going to uni. I'm a big one on that. Uni won't teach you knowledge about finances. It'll give you a business degree. It'll give you some wanky financial degree, but it's not going to give you what you need from the real world. It'll come from reading books, sitting with people who know the investment, like I mentioned. Align yourself with people who have the same passion for that same asset class of investing. And of course, start slow and increase your risk as you get more comfortable. And that's exactly what we do with our clients' portfolio. So say, for example, we get a brand new client in, we start them off on low risk assets. Sorry, I guess you could call it properties. And as they become clients for longer, 5 years, 6 years, whatever, we then will lift their risk profile and put them into, I wouldn't say higher risk investments, but something they would have thought was higher risk from day one. So it's best to start slow and ease into it. All right, acquiring assets. This one here is very important to start as early as you can. All right, guys. So acquiring assets you should start doing this tomorrow, to be honest with you. Whether it's a managed fund, whether it's obviously you can't just go out and buy a house tomorrow, but savings to a certain degree is an asset too. But don't buy liabilities, buy assets with a third-party income stream. So third-party income stream could be rent, could be dividends, could be investment returns, whatever it's got to be. Many people buy liabilities like cars, etc., and they think that they're bought an asset where in fact they haven't. Luxuries are often purchased first. I see that all the time. They buy the big car first, the oversized homes to move into, and then they want to start investing. They want to get set up first. Do I think that's the right way of doing it? Not exactly. You don't. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that's not the way I do it. Because the rich buy assets and the assets buy the luxuries. All right. So what I mean by that is, if you have a great property portfolio, your portfolio can actually pay your mortgage for you. You'd be quite surprised how. I'm not talking about pay out the mortgage, but if you've got a high cash flow asset portfolio and it's giving a bit of income coming in on that, that could potentially pay your mortgage repayment. So that's tick the box. You've replaced that part of your income to pay that debt for you without having to go to work. The poor and the middle class seem to have the mindset of buying luxuries first, which I see all the time, and the rich buy the luxuries last. So for those of you guys who know me, I actually went through a pretty relatively vicious life change about 5 years ago, where divorce does destroy your finances for everyone involved. I'm not saying I won or lost or whatever. I don't care anymore. But what it is, right, is when that happened, I actually pulled my lifestyle back so far that I didn't think I could do it. I'll be honest. But I pulled my lifestyle right back. For those of you who do know me, I used to have lots of cars. I sold all the cars, but one and a half. Got half a car as well there. And I was like, I'm going to scale right down all my toys and just restart. All right. And there's nothing wrong with doing that either, guys. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And I would not be ashamed for you guys if you had to sell something that you loved to restart your whole basis. I had a client in yesterday. He has a nice old car. He's considering selling that so he can get his second property, because obviously it's going to work better for him. All right. So this one's a big one. Know the difference between assets and liabilities. So assets are anything that puts money in your pocket, like I mentioned, dividends, rental income, interest on your savings, whatever it might be. Actually, I've got that written down. Managed funds as well. Managed funds are a good way with shares to get into shares, but not have to manage it yourself necessarily. I don't have a managed fund, by the way, guys, just so you know. I don't promote them, but if you wanted to start there, that's also fine. Just invest in something, do something. Liabilities are anything that pulls money out of your pocket. Cars, caravans. I was going to write down kids, but I don't think that's allowed. And even an oversized home can drain your financials, all right, guys? Your home is an asset, but doesn't generate and will very rarely generate income for you. So don't go overboard on your own home. Who cares about what Mr. and Mrs. Jones have? Have a nice, comfortable home. And of course, the big one, this is one I focus on a lot, is your mind. Financial knowledge is an asset. Train the mind. I train my mind every day. All right, guys. Very rarely I don't go past a day where I'm not doing some sort of training in my mindset to keep on track and understand what else is out there in the marketplace that can be done. All right. So I'm big on that. Train your mind. Your mind is an asset. Up until I get dementia, my mind's going to carry me through life. So the next thing is investing tips. You guys may not like this, but I'm a big one I believe you should be putting aside 20 to 30% of your net income. And I can hear you all arguing with me right now. I can't do that. I've got kids. I've got a wife. I can't get rid of them. That's fine. But 20 to 30% of your income is not undoable if you do it the right way. So if you get an increase in salary, right, or a second job, invest all that money, all right? Do not accept. I used to say, if you have an increase in job, you deserve it. Keep half, save half. But no one was listening. So I'm like, no, fuck that. You got to invest the whole lot. So if your income goes up $100 a week, I would put all that aside, because you were already used to living off the previous income. So as your income increases, imagine if you did that for those watching who are right around my generation or potentially older. Imagine the income you were earning when you were 25 or 30, and if you're in your 40s or 50s now, how much, hopefully your income's gone up, how much more money you would be saving if you did not increase your lifestyle as your job increased. It'd be amazing if you were to add all that up, to be honest with you. Always invest within your comfort zones. So that's obviously choosing the right asset class. And of course, wherever that asset class is, obviously asset class have multiple sort of splits inside that as well, like different styles of property, different styles of shares, etc., different styles of llamas. If you were to lose money, I don't want you to think just because you lose money in a transaction, that's the end of it. You've got to learn from it. You've got to go back and go, okay, what could I have done better in that transaction? Should I have sold that share earlier when my gut was telling me I should have? I've lost money on properties twice, and I learned big time with that. That I lost money on a block of land that was in what we call a bushfire flame zone. The reason why I lost money on that is I expected my conveyancer back then, 20 plus years ago, to read the contract, and they didn't. So what do I do now? I read every contract. I make sure that that's not going to happen to me again. And I lost money on an off-the-plan purchase purely because of, I changed jobs last minute. That was a bad scenario. But with that, I've learned from that, and I will never do that again. And of course, I've only done better since then. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting here today. Keep things simple in the beginning. Don't overload your mindset, of course. If you start to become overwhelmed, you could be going too fast for yourself, so just slow down. Use the time you would normally spend on social media or streaming services to build your knowledge. I just think we're addicted to the screen, guys. That's a big one. If you, like, I listen, for those of you who know UFC fighting, Dana White owns that. And he said something to his kids where if they have a little bit of savage in their personality, they are going to be in the top 10% of people in relation to that, purely because of they've got balls. They're not sitting there watching social media, looking at what everyone else have, but what you don't have. They're not watching Netflix and what do I call it? Whatever they call it, binge watching, whatever they call it. And don't get me wrong, I watch Netflix, I do social media too sometimes, but nowhere near the level of a lot of other people. I could go weeks without even turning the TV on now. Obviously, I'm a big football fan, but that's finished now, so I've got no reason to turn the TV on unless I don't want to talk to my wife. So that's a good one. And a big one is get a mentor. A mentor has made the mistakes already. I'm a big one with that. I've learned from other mentors, whether it's business or property, and just they will tell you the mistakes they've made in the past. And you can always learn from those mistakes without actually having to commit to making the mistakes, which is a big one as well, guys. All right. So I hope that helped a little bit tonight, guys. So that's about it for us here. So I suppose before we go any further, do we have any questions, Jess?
Yes, we do have a few questions tonight, actually, which is good because I know how much you love questions.
I love questions.
So the first one that's been messaged through, someone says, I'm time poor because I drive a lot for work. Reading a book's really hard. Are audiobooks okay?
Yeah, 100% audio. I'm not one for audiobooks because I've got issues with concentration, I guess, on some things. And audiobooks, what happens is I just, for some reason, start thinking about something else and stop listening to the audiobook. But if you're driving, like my son, he drives a lot. He listens to a lot of different podcasts, which I'm really impressed with, which are very similar to audiobooks to a certain degree. And he's starting to get some feedback from that. And it's definitely helping. It helps you mentally just listening to audiobooks. So, 100%.
Why would you recommend paying insurance monthly? Doesn't it cost more?
It does cost more for some people. Obviously, you've got two options there. Is one, change insurers. But I pay monthly for mine, even though it does cost more. It's just so much easier. It's a couple of dollars. You've got to be realistic. If my insurance for my car, say $1,000, it's going to cost me another $12 over a year. I don't really care because it's paid monthly. I've got full control of it. Heaps better. Obviously, with what would you call it? Some insurance companies, you won't be able to be paid. That'll be a direct debit, but you can choose what day it comes out on. So if you're paid monthly, you can choose. Like mine comes out on the first of the month every month.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer. Pay it monthly. I don't care if it costs more. It's convenience.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. We just had another one through. It says, our family is at different stages. We're ready for investments and kids ready for first home purchases. When would the most relevant webinars for those be? Bit of a tricky one.
No, I'm joking. It's all right.
Well, next month, when we're speaking about getting into the market potentially.
Yeah, and that will definitely revolve around first home buyers, because that's a big one. It's a big thing we're seeing now where first home buyers are going, forget about the first home buyer benefits. I just want to get into the marketplace.
Yeah.
But as far as with that question about getting started, obviously, if you want to shoot us your email, so you can email just info, I-N-F-O, I don't know why I spelled that, sorry. That's silly. At thepropertybloke.com.au. We have, and it's on our YouTube channel too, but it's easier just to send it to you on a link. But it breaks down how to get started a tiny bit into investing. But in saying that, you can just book in a call too, and we can just have a chat to see what we can help you with there too. So, but yeah, and you may be able to help your kids at the same time. So there's ways around things to make it all work. But we do have some videos there where I talk about how to get started in property, and but they were a few months ago. But we can share them with you though as well, definitely.
Yeah, if you just shoot through your email address, we could probably send over the most relevant links directly to those. Would be easiest. 20 to 30% seems unrealistic, which you thought you'd get this feedback. How would I do that when I live week to week now?
Okay, the first thing I want you to do is do my budgeting scenario. Get the black book out, take your girlfriend's phone numbers out of it, and just write down all the money you're spending each day. And you may not be able to, obviously, you're not going to go from 0% to 30% overnight.
Right away.
What I want you to do is start with a percentage. I don't care if you start with 1%. The best way of doing it, to be honest with you, okay, let's break it down. Sorry, guys. So if I was in that position, I would start with 1% and increase that every pay cycle to 2%. Potentially, that could happen too quick for you, but I would aim to get to 10% within 10 pay cycles and then see how you go. All right, guys. So, but the best way of doing that is to work out where your money's going first. But if you start with small increments, the best way for me to explain that is I do CrossFit, right? And I see this workout on the board and I go, oh my God, I'm going to call in sick tomorrow. There's no way I'm going to be able to walk tomorrow. But when I break it down, or when the trainer helps us break it down, it's easier to get through. So doing it small things, small like percentages, you're going to find it eventually creeps up on you, and you'll wake up one day and go, wow, that's actually starting to work. That's all I can really suggest, unless I was to personally speak to you, but that's what I would suggest. Start with 1%, increase it each fortnight, week, month, whatever it is, and you'll find it'll start to work. You'll start to see the savings, and you will find as well there's a high percentage of what it might motivate you to be a bit more aggressive with your percentage too. And say no to things. Yeah.
That's a big one, I think.
Yeah.
Where can I find like-minded people to connect with and learn from?
The best way I do that is just generally ask around. Like, it depends where you're working and what your relationships are like with your colleagues, with work, whether it's, even if it's in your network of friends, just ask what they're doing. Yeah, like, so what's some bald guy talk about money? He said to ask around to see, what you're doing as far as investing goes. You'll probably find a lot of them aren't doing any of it, but some of them will be. And just say, listen, I want to learn more about that. Can I have a beer with you? Can I buy you lunch? Whatever it might be. Yeah. Start with that first. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Is it better to pay my extra savings off my home mortgage or to invest?
That's a good question. That's a little bit of an independent question, but if you can't invest, whether you don't have enough to invest right now, paying it off your mortgage isn't a bad thing, but you should have some sort of investment structure on the side. Paying off your mortgage is good, right? Every Australian's there. I would probably say most Australians is paying off your mortgage is the main thing they want to do, which I fully understand. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But investing it elsewhere can sometimes help you pay your mortgage off quicker though as well. Whereas what I mean by that, if you're investing it into another asset that grows quite good, You can sell that asset and then pay your house off as well. I do a lot of that with clients where we invest in property. When the equity grows, we then sell that and pay chunks or pay out the home loan at that time. But if you are paying extra off your mortgage, there's nothing wrong with that either. All right, it's nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
You do need to diversify, is the word, and start investing as well. Yeah, definitely.
Try and do as much as you can to do both.
Sorry, to just come back, Jess.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Don't focus solely on your home loan.
Yeah.
That's my biggest one there. If you focus solely on your home loan, in 15 years' time, you will own your house. And I high five you to that, but you'll have nothing else.
Yeah.
That's my concern. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. I have an oversized home, which we do see quite often, and a large mortgage. I'm too embarrassed to downsize. Can you offer any advice or other options I might have?
Yeah, stop caring what other people think. Yeah, big one. It's like I live in a decent sized house where I am, but if things got tight for whatever reason, my wife and I would not care if we downsized at all. Not a problem at all. I would not care what people think, because at the end of the day, you've got one life. And if you want to live in an oversized home for 10 years just to prove to everybody you can afford it, you've lost 10 years of your life. So I'm a big believer in you've got one life. I do work hard, but I do also not care what people think about me. Yeah.
And that was it. That was the last one.
All righty, too easy, guys. So if you're all done, what we can do is get going, I guess. Yeah. I lost track. Sorry, guys. So no, hang on. I'm not finished yet. Sorry, guys. Hang on a sec. That was the question time. I'm not really good at this. Sorry, guys. Hang on a sec. All right, that was the questions. Then what we've got from that is, of course, this is just common sense. Everyone's goals are different. Circumstances are different. We can look after you if you want to chuck that link in. Jess has put the link in the chat. If you wanted to have a chat, just let me know. Next month's workshop, getting started with limited funds. So for that question before, next month could revolve around more about first home buyers getting started, but it also will revolve around people who may be a little bit what we would call low risk investors. So they may want to do a joint investment instead. So I'm going to go through structures to protect yourself by doing that. All right, guys. So no, but apart from that, I'm really thankful that you watched tonight. I really appreciate it. I really hope you join us again next month. I love sharing information. So if you need anything, guys, give us a yell. 1300. What's our phone number? 1300 322 300. Sorry, it's been a while. It's getting a bit old school now. Or you can reach out on Facebook, send us an email through our website, whatever you want to do, guys. But I appreciate you watching tonight, and I hope I'll chat to you again soon one day. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye.